Good morning, Tina.
Hi, good morning, Joe.
Why are you all dressed up this morning?
We're going to go out for a ride. A little winter weather out there.
Yep, and we're not taking the Cuba bikes. We're going to actually take our snow bikes. So it's the first time that we've ridden these in about a month or so.
And I see that you have some boots laid out here.
Well, you know, I always get, and the discussion is always going on about what to wear for, my feet are always cold, what to wear for winter riding. And so I just thought I would share some ideas that have worked for me. I want to let people know that nothing is perfect out there, but we keep striving and keep experimenting. And so I guess first thing I'd like to talk to people about is my sock system. So what I like to wear for my base layer is, these are just my choices. This is a Smart Wool, ultra thin. You can see right there, Smart Wool, ultra thin base layer. And this is used to dry out fast, and it'll wick the sweat away from my body. And so that's my base layer. My next layer is a RAB, vapor barrier. And so this vapor barrier has been made by two different companies. Currently, right now, the only one I know about is RAB. That was the exact same liner. RAB, I think, has done a better job with it. The other one, I had all the waterproof lining on the inside is peeled up and flaked and stuff like that. These now are probably 3 years old and they still are really good. First thing I do with these is I pull the string out, because by the time they get all bunched up inside of your pants, see out here, and then they get tucked into your boot, that string is all binding and creates a hot spot in there. And so when it's really cold, I'll use toe warmers. And I've told people about toe warmers in the past, and they says, well, you know what, I tried those hand warmers and they didn't work. And I says, what? And they says, yeah, the hand warmers didn't work. And I say, well, I didn't tell you hand warmers, I told you toe warmers. And there's a reason for toe warmers. Toe warmers have, the reason they don't last as long is they have an active agent in here that it helps them to activate to, I think it's 103, 106 degrees without as much oxygen. And so therefore they have a shorter lifespan than a hand warmer. And I'll use sometimes up to 2 or 3, and I'll put one here and then I'll flip them upside down and put the other one here, and that caps over the top of my toe. I've also had people, I've told people to do that, and they've put them in their boot and they put them on the underside, and they'll say, well, they're so uncomfortable. And I says, what do you mean? And they says, yeah, I put it on the underneath my foot. And I says, well, don't put it underneath your foot. For one thing, you're always standing on your pedals or pedaling, so you're always doing that downward pressure. And what happens is, as these things lose their lifespan, they become like little cement pads. And so imagine that with your toes all scrunched up, creating a hard ridge underneath your foot. And especially if you're doing winter ultras like Tuscobia or Arrowhead, or even the Iditarod, and you get up out of your saddle, you got that hard lump in the toe of your boot. And so anyway, it just creates misery. Once I put that over the top of my vapor barrier, then I use the Smart Wool Expedition Weight sock. And as you can see, I'd like to say that a lot of guys or a lot of people that are doing winter ultras are all riding very similar stuff. So I marked these socks. I took red ink and I put it over the Smart Wool. So when they go in a dryer or they're hanging by a fireplace and I go to pick up mine, I get mine back. And the same thing I do with my socks. You see I colored the rims. And so there's a reason, 2 reasons for me coloring the rim of these socks. One is because I'll wear a pair for training every day. And these, let's say the dark green ones are my trainer. I wear these every day, but come to race day, my race socks and my spare race socks will have a different color. So I know that the loft is more because they haven't been beaten down with daily rides. They're more loftier and they're more likely to keep my feet warm in very cold temperatures. So I'll have one pair on my foot, basically almost brand new, and then my spare ones will be almost brand new too. So that's socks, our base layer, vapor barrier, insulation layer, Smart Wool Expedition. Toe warmers, and then for riding, for boots, my boot choices are quite vast, as you can see. I like the Lake 303s. I actually had the earlier model of these, wore them for years. Extremely comfortable boots. Great for cold weather commuting, not sub-zero, but great for cold weather commuting. I like the newer design. These were used in the Iditarod for many years. Guys would glue up neoprene over the top. They just really MacGyvered these things up, and because that was our choice for very long. Then a couple years ago, they came out with the MXZ400s, and I actually love these boots. For going up for short rides, even like today, I would probably pick this boot for my #1 choice. It's extremely comfortable. They keep my feet warm just like they are out of the box. I don't have to do anything fancy to them. They've got great reflection on them, so for commuting and stuff like that, they're an awesome boot. And I have found these to be warmer than the Wolvenhammers, the ones made by 45 North. I know they have a newer version out. I don't know anything about them, but these have like a non-skid ice pad on them to help you not slip in the ice. It had studded or studs on it, carbide studs in the toes, but they came out right away. So whatever walking on steps or whatever actually ripped those right out. And so I haven't missed them, but that's just maybe a weak point in the boot. Next in line is for flats. So 2017 in the Iditarod, this was my boot of choice because I knew the temperatures were going to be really cold, and I actually saw 60 below zero in these. And these are called the Sorel, and I believe they're the Sorel Intrepid Explorer. These are a great boot. They're pretty lightweight for as huge as they are. We have all nicknamed them the Herman Monster boot. Your foot is here, so you're probably you're 2 to 3 inches off the ice or off the cold weather. And they're fairly comfortable to walk in. I had put, self-tapping sheet metal screws in the bottom to help walk on ice and stuff like that. The downfall with this boot is that, and the positive factor, is it's waterproof all the way up to almost your knee. As you can see, they're very high and they're huge. But what happens is you get condensation buildup on the inside and ice. And if you're not paying attention to your foot maintenance, you see that they have, their liner is pretty awesome. It has like a thermal layer in here. You can kind of see that silver thermal layer in between the felts, the different felt liners. But you can also see that the inside is waterproof. And so that ice will build up on the inside here, create condensation, and unless when you go into a checkpoint, if you're not pulling these out and making sure they're dry before you put them back in, and even the cavity inside the boot can build up ice, and so you really need to take these out and dissect them and make sure they're good and dry when you're passing through a checkpoint before you head back out again. Otherwise, they're a great boot. My downfall with these was I'm not a flat pedal guy. But these were the warmest boots that I felt comfortable with in 2017 to take on the Iditarod. And so I did these on flat pedals. I've done 100-mile races in these on flat pedals and been fine, or the Arrowhead and Tuscobia and stuff. But to do a get up day after day and ride on flat pedals with these, well, it wrecked my knees. Because I'm used to, like in a cleated shoe, there's float. So each time my downstroke, my foot is twisting on that pedal. Well, when you're using a flat pedal with really sharp cleats, every time you push down, that pedal, your foot isn't moving. All that twisting is now going on in your knee instead of down here on the pedal, where I have been used to that movement for so many years. And after 6 days of that, my knees were actually purple. Back black and blue, and I couldn't go on, so I made it to McGrath. So that is the high points and the low points of my experience with Sorel Intrepid Explorers. So now I'm moving into the Wulfgars, and these Wulfgars are probably last generation. I think they're right up until last generation. This is a Gator. It's a Bergenhaus Extreme. This is a Gore-Tex Gator. This goes just up to your knee, almost just past your knee. It's great. It's a great idea and a great concept. again, because it's 100% waterproof and Gore-Tex, you have to deal with moisture management. So you have to deal with ice buildup and stuff like that. But because of the design, I think it's easier to shake that ice off and deal with it and manage it. The problem with these boots and using these gaiters is if this gaiter is too tight for this boot, it will cause the boot to implode. And if you're walking in this day after day, it will bring in the sides of the toe and actually start crushing your toe. I'm not the only one who's had this problem. Other people have used this gaiter on these Wulfgar boots because they don't have a full toe cap that comes around. There's this break right here in the sole. We've all experienced the exact same thing. So where it's a great idea for maybe a one-day event, for doing it for multi-days, it can create problems. Tina hasn't had that issue because the marriage between the boot and the gaiter has been almost perfect. So it's not too much pressure to crush this toe in, but enough to keep it on the boot and keep it from falling off. I don't know if she's ever had this come off the toe of her boot walking in deep snow. The other problem with this Wulfgar boot, and I've seen their newer version, I think that they've addressed the liner issue, but for the last few years, they've used this felt liner. This wool felt liner, and if you look inside here, you can see all the kind of the crinkles in the liner, and there's where the fault is. So these little crinkles, the liner actually drops down, just like you can see, and what it does is it creates hot spots on your ankles and stuff, and they become extremely painful to wear, especially if you're on and off the bike. You're walking, riding. I've talked to 45 North about this, and they says, oh, you just pull the liners up, and it's all fixed. And it's just like, yeah, but as soon as you start walking again, the liners will then collapse, and the same scenario will be playing out again. I see that, like I said, I see that they have remade their liners. Hopefully it's they've addressed that problem. What I did in mine is I have the same model of Wulfgars that Tina does, but I have replaced the liners. So I have a thinner liner. So this is, what is it? Palalou. It's made in France, and this is basically like a climbing boot or a ski boot replacement liner. And these are about almost $200, about $189 for these pair. These are my thinner models. They're, like I say, they're probably 5 mils, but basically the same as the Wulfgar liners. And they're moldable. So if you know anybody who has go to a ski shop that can custom fit liners to you, you can have these custom fitted to your foot. Most of the time I use these ones here. These are the Innovas, or Intuition, and these are an Intuition Mukluk liner. You can see that they're much thicker. These are the ones I run most of the time in these boots. And these also, again, are the Intuition Mukluk liner. They're made for climbing boots, and they can also be heat molded to your foot to get a more proper foot. And like I say, I'm using the 45 North Wolfgar as my base platform, and this setup has worked very well for me. I've been most happy with it. It's a bummer that it's taken me so many years to put together a system that works. This is an insulated gaiter made by Mountain Tool of California. A lot of the guys, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few of the guys who've done the Iditarod, even from other countries, love this liner. It's worked very well for all of us. The only shortcoming with this liner, it's a little bit more breathable than the Gore-Tex, so ice buildup isn't as big of an issue. The issue with it is the 510 rubber that they use it's not long enough to go down over the toe of the boot. And so if you're doing quite a bit of walking in this boot in deep snow, you're gonna push this up. And the reason I leave the cord out is so I can pull it back down over the top. What I have done, so if I'm gonna do Arrowhead or Tuscobia, is I've taken shoe goo and I've put shoe goo underneath here all the way. There are other adhesives you can use. That's the one that I have chosen. And it's a bugger to get all of it back off again, but that's what I've used. And so if I ever need to take the gaiter off, I can peel it up. It's harder than heck, but I can peel it up and remove this gaiter from this boot. But anyway, so this is one of my favorite gaiters that I've ever wore, and one of my favorite boot setups for cold weather. I think as far as technology has brought us to this day, this is probably one of the best setups. I don't know of anything better than this. Another thing is I just would like to confirm to people that, you know, I know that you're used to doing bike rides and you're training to do Tuscobia, you're trained to do Arrowhead, and you think that these boots are going to keep your feet warm all the time. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to get off your feet or off your bike and do some walking every once in a while. And we call that just plain foot maintenance. And get that blood circulating back into your foot, and everything will come back. You can get back on the bike and start riding again. But that's common. There's, like I say, there's nothing perfect out there. This is the best setup I have found so far. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on winter riding boots. I hope that you could take something away from this. I hope that something I said was helpful. Let me know. Give me your comments.